Yeah. What's up? Hey, my people, how far? It's your boy, JFK. How are you doing? I mean, how far? How are you? How is you? How is your family? Yeah, man, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I just thank God. Thank God. As you guys saw my flyer, it's been interesting. It's been interesting. Your boy took that vaccine on Sunday. You know what I mean? Took that vaccine. I took that bold step. I said yes to the vaccine. I said yes to the vaccine on Sunday. Sunday night was good, man. No big deal. It's a little pain around the area. No problem. My guy, by the time Monday rolled around, man, Moderna began to speak. Moderna began to speak, y'all. So it started with a few chills, just small chill. I said, no big deal. I felt a small chill. I said, no big deal. Next thing I know, man, temperature was rising. I said, no big deal. If you're here, drop me a line. Let me know who's in the building. This is your boy JFK, man. I'm just talking about my vaccination journey. So I said, oh boy, this thing is not playing. It's not playing. So by later in the day, towards like midnight, I started feeling, weak. I started feeling fatigued. I said, what is this, man? I said, I'm hoping that this thing will not be too much of a big deal. Oh boy, by midnight, man, I was shaking and shivering. Hey, what is this? So, and like one of the things that really moved me a bit was the fact that the way they've done this vaccine, right? They've done the vaccine in such a way that the vaccine has mimicked the virus. When a vaccine behaves like the virus to a T, you must respect that vaccine. You must bow to that vaccine. Aye. A vaccine that can so mimic the virus like this, all the symptoms I've heard about the virus, I'm experiencing each and every one, but very small doses. You understand? So small headache, small fatigue. You understand what I'm saying? Just a little bit of discomfort. Yeah, small fever, small chills. So it's like the vaccine just give me like little pieces of what the disease is. And I'm telling you, man, and now some people will hear that and say, nah, man, you see, that's my problem. I don't want that. And this is just the first dose. And I'm finding out that it happens. Different people have different reactions to the first dose. So some people don't have any problems first dose, they don't feel anything. Second dose, they start to feel something. So in my own case, I'm hoping that first dose, that my reaction to the first dose, I want that to be my only reaction. When I go for my second dose, I don't want any more reactions. By then, I should be good, all right? Because I already got all the feelings of the vaccine. So, I mean, all I can tell you is this: anyone that can create a vaccine that can be so identical with the virus knows what they're doing. Oh, at least I think they know what they do. If you're here, drop me a line. Let me know you are here. We're talking about this vaccine, man. I took my Moderna, man. I felt the chills. I got the headache. I got the body aches, man. I never expected it. I never expected it. I mean, everybody talks about how, you expect one or two things, but I never expected the full plate. I got all the symptoms, man, like in one night. This thing is not funny. It's not funny. So, and it gives you a better appreciation for the actual disease. Like, if this is what this disease is doing to people for a week, 2 weeks, oh boy, we must vaccinate and get out of it. Because ordinary one night, just one night, man, I couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle it. I got the headaches, I got the chills, I got everything. I was down, man. My poor wife was looking at me like, bro, but we both took the vaccine. How come you are the one behaving like a baby? I couldn't even respond because I was having chills. So temperature went up. I got all the trimmings. But I'm telling you, man, I mean, someone has done their research. Someone has done their research if they're able to come out with a vaccine that has all the characteristics of the coronavirus. So you know what? I say that to say this. No, it took me. It was a rough night. It was a rough night for me. I said I'm just not feeling a little better, and I said I must come and tell my people what I saw. I'm one of those telling people we got to take the vaccine. We got to do what we got to do. We got to come out of this. I'm saying all that, and you know what? Let me come out and tell you my experience. I got the jab, and I got the feelings. Now, my wife and I both got it. She didn't have any of the things I had. Now, she got the Pfizer, and she didn't have any feelings like what I had. So take that, for what you will. It's going to affect everyone differently. It depends on what your body system is to start with, and I think different vaccines will have slightly different effects on the body. At the end of the day, the idea is that by the time you get your second vaccine, your system would have been immune. And I'll tell you something. If, for instance, the way my body reacted to this dosage of what would have been the virus, where the next day I'm able to bounce back, I'm able to get online here and talk to y'all and be myself. If that's how they've designed it so that it can help your body get ready for the fight, and the fight, you can win it because the antibodies are not they've practiced how to deal with it, then it's worth it. It's worth it. It's your boy JFK. Come on, if you're in here, let me know. Let me know. You know how we do, man. I'm ready to put your comments up. Anybody here, if you've gotten the vaccine already, let me know. How was your own vaccine experience? It's one of those things I like to, people want to know. A lot of people who haven't gotten it yet, they're looking at some of us who have gotten it, and they're trying to figure out, should I get it or not? So I want to know, if you've gotten the vaccine, let me know your experience. I'm telling you, man, some fever, some chills, some headaches, a little flu, a little cough, my guy. But all of them packaged inside one day. The vaccine just packaged the virus inside one day for my body. So I guess that was my body doing training. You understand? When you watch those martial arts movies, wax on, wax off. That's what my body was doing. But bros, I trust me, I tell you, I was feeling it. I was feeling the temperature was up and everything, man. It's no joke. It's no joke. But I believe that's how we beat the virus, right? That's how your body fights. So yeah, that was my experience, and I just want to encourage you. You know what? It might affect you differently, but you get your vaccine if you're one of those who's thinking about getting the vaccine. I mean, don't delay. They've opened it up right now. 16 and above age wise, you can go get an appointment and just get the first shot. And I just feel like, I feel like I'm doing something towards helping to get rid of this, because that's my problem with a lot of people out here talking about, oh, I'm not gonna take it, I'm not gonna take it. I hear you, but then I ask the follow-up question, so what's your solution, what's your suggestion? And that's where they're quiet, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. You can't just be out here disparaging the existing solutions. You have no alternatives. You understand? You can't just be telling me, oh, we shouldn't take the vaccine, and then I ask you, so what should we do? And you have no idea, other than to just allow this thing to take people's lives and to let people die. So if that's all you're about, if that's all you have, then you're not someone that I should listen to. You're not someone you don't have solutions. You don't have solutions. All you have is, just a desire to badmouth the solutions that already exist. So once again, it's your boy, man. Let me know if you're in the building. Let me know how your vaccine situation is. Did you take the vaccine yet? What was the effect? Were you able? Did you get? What was your reaction? Which vaccine did you take, and what was your reaction? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. We're talking about the vaccine, like we're sharing stories. We're sharing vaccine stories out here. You know. You know what? We're sharing stories. Hop on board. I know. We got a few other things to talk about because I was like I put on my flyer. I want to go. There are a lot of like law related, court related matters going on right now, justice related matters. I just want to touch on a couple of them, and just to let's have a conversation about some of the things we're discussing, so we can be discussing them with some knowledge, some understanding, some facts, some real reporting about these things. That way, we're not just talking, and just having that conversation without information. So, and I think that's where I'm at. Like, I don't want any more conversations without information. You need to be able to talk from a place of, of knowledge, facts, and then we can argue. You can have the facts and then argue those points based on those facts. But we live in a world right now. People not even bothering to find the facts, and that's the part I think that's disturbing. Let me put this up here right now. Share story of actions tonight. Uh, Come in, you know, jump on with your story. Yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm doing that. Just sharing that out. You know what? Let's get that going. Yeah. So that's my vaccination story. And I feel like a lot of people who are discouraging people, from taking the vaccines. I don't understand how you can do that and you don't have a solution. You don't have an alternative. Let me get some water. Right. So people are out here, they doing all kinds of things, talking about, oh, no, no, the vaccine, just looking for every negative story about the vaccine. And let me tell you something. The fact that you can find negative, stories about the vaccine is not is not conclusive. And I think that there's a lot of, you're just being disingenuous because you know the truth. Everybody knows the truth about medication, about treatment, about vaccines. Everybody understands that concerning vaccinations, treatments, you know that there are side effects. You know that some people will be affected more than others, right? You know that not everybody's system will handle a vaccination, handle medication the same way. But you want to pretend you don't know that. And you want to take any story that you hear, a negative story about vaccine or side effects. You want to take that and use that as the basis to argue your larger point that we should not take the vaccines at all because out of 3 million people, 7 people took the vaccine and they had an adverse effect and they actually died. They had a blood clot with the AstraZeneca. But you've not bothered to go and look at the study. You've not bothered to look at that report and find out exactly how they died. You've not bothered to understand that that's 7 people out of 3 million. See, and that's where it's so annoying. That's where it's so annoying. We have hundreds of millions of people already in the world. A lot of Americans have taken this, right? And to the glory of God, most of us, almost everyone who's taken it is well. That's really the truth. That's the truth. You have complications in a few cases, and you want to take those complications and use that as a basis to argue against the vaccine, and you're just not being honest. That's just a dishonest position to take. Right? If you don't want to take it, that's fine. But you don't have to paint the entire system, entire vaccine process, as sinister because of expected, complications. The sad truth is, for every medication we take, for everything we use, for every treatment, you go for surgery. I mean, so people say, "Oh, it's routine." Even with a routine surgery, you sign papers, but saying that you understand that things could happen, things could go wrong. It's unfortunate and it's sad and it's horrible for the families of those who've passed away due to complications. But even those are under investigation to see exactly what caused them to die. And so that's why it's so horrible. I have all these people online going online talking about, oh, you see, didn't we tell you? Didn't we tell you that you're late, bruv? You're late and you're dumb. You're dumb because you're waiting for that. You've been waiting for the story of people that died after taking the vaccine. That's what you've been focused on, right? But in the process, you've ignored the fact that hundreds of millions have already taken it, and they're okay. And now you put those odds, and this is what frustrates me, right? This is what throws me off. You're the same people who said when we were talking about 100,000 people dying from COVID, 200,000 Americans dying from COVID, 300,000 Americans dying from COVID. You're the same ones who said, "Oh, those numbers are nothing." You're the same people. You happen to be the same people because you want to stick to your guns and pretend like COVID is not real or that COVID is not as bad as some are saying or COVID is not as serious. That's what you want to do. You want to stick to your guns on that. So that's why you want to keep attacking that narrative and saying, "Oh, COVID is not real and the vaccine is unnecessary and the vaccine is a plot." That's your whole thing, right? So you're almost happy to hear that people are dying from complications that are linked to the vaccines. I know that. I know you feel like, yeah, I told y'all, but you're the dumb one because we're telling you that we're saving more lives with the vaccine, much more lives with the vaccine. We have nations now that have vaccinated large portions of their people, and they are recording. They are seeing the change. They're seeing the way the COVID, the coronavirus is just disappearing, and it's nosediving. The elderly population, The older ones that got the vaccine first in many countries, they're doing better. The death rate is almost at half in some places. Check out Israel, is a good case study. They really were aggressive with their vaccination, and they're having a lot of success. So the reality is, from day one, we knew there would be complications. Not everybody's system is going to deal with the vaccine the same way. It is not a basis for you to discredit the vaccine. As a matter of fact, the success of the vaccine outweighs the losses. It just does. And even the 7 deaths that are being linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine, they're still being investigated to find out what other complications led to their death. So you're not. So I don't see all these people that are trying to like point to 7 deaths out of hundreds of millions of people that have taken the vaccine. Seven statistically. Now, normally I hate to talk like that because I'm the kind of person who believes that 1 death is unacceptable. No, no one should die. I'm the kind of person who I go for it, and I'm not going to put it out there, but I've gone and found out the names of the 7 people, of the information of the 7 people that AstraZeneca that used the AstraZeneca vaccine and got complications and the blood clots. There are actually 30 people that complained after taking the vaccine, but of the 30, 7 passed away, 7 died. But of the 30, the others are doing well now. They had initial complications, but they're doing well. Now, I'm the kind of person who doesn't think that that's anything to even sneeze at. That's a human life, each life. But if our conversation is about saving a larger number of lives, then you have no point. You have no point. 7 people, about 200 million to 300 million people at this point have taken the vaccine. 7 complications. I mean, statistically, just think about that. Just think about that. 7 out of 200 million. You got to think about that. And if you're honest, that's a success rate for the vaccine. That's a success rate for the vaccine, just mathematically. And in any case, what is your alternative? This is the thing that offends me the most. You have no plan. You have no alternative. You have no solution. But you reject the one that exists. And you've been waiting for bad news to buttress your point. But it doesn't buttress your point because it's not new. Because we've always understood that these vaccines always have a situation where you would have some side effects in some people, and the complications might lead to more severe actions or more severe reactions. So you're not saying nothing by telling me that the vaccine, some people have died. Those deaths are under investigation. To the extent that there was a reaction to the vaccine, it is going to be unique to those people. But you have to compare it to the hundreds of millions that have already taken it and who are doing well. Because that's the thing that's been characterizing this entire season, is the desire to just ignore science, to ignore math, to ignore facts and figures. And it's unfortunate. And so my message is to everyone else: don't listen to these guys. Don't listen to these naysayers who have no solution for you, but they want to just discourage you from trying the one thing that's working. That's all it is. They have no solution. They don't know how to cure COVID. Many of them have gotten COVID. Some, unfortunately, got COVID and passed away, of those who have been denying COVID, who are denying the vaccines. They have no solution for you, but they want you to join them in their denial. They want you to join them in their refusal to see reason. They want you to join them in turning their back on science. And I'm not even going to spend time on those who are trying to tie this into the coming of Jesus. And it's like, you completely off. You don't know what you're talking about. You're out of your head. There's nothing in the Bible that identifies vaccination. Nothing. And you know it. In order for you to get from the description in Revelation about the mark of the beast, in order for you to get from 666 to COVID-19 vaccine, you would have to do so many somersaults intellectually. You would have to tie in so many fake things. That's the problem. You read the word and you have to add to it for you to build this vaccine as the mark of the beast. You have to do that because the Bible does not mention vaccines. The Bible does not mention injections. The Bible does not say that 666 will be given to you via intravenous injection. You have to come up with that yourself. You have to add to the Bible to get from 666 to a vaccine. So you're lying. You're either lying or you're just plain ignorant, and you don't want to bother with information and knowledge. Because the way the Bible sets up, the Bible is not designed for you to lose your salvation because you took a vaccine. You see, because the God you are describing is a God who's playing chess with human lives. The God you are describing by talking about the vaccine being the mark of the beast is a God who intends to just destroy everyone anyway. He wants all men to perish, and he's just devising different fun ways to do it. That's not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible says, I would that all men would repent and come to the knowledge of the truth. I would that no one should perish. God's design is not for people to die en masse, or to perish en masse, or to go to hell en masse. That's why he sent his son, the most precious thing to him. So this God that you're describing, who is just sending viruses to people and then waiting for them to take vaccinations and then using that vaccination to send them to hell, that's not the God of the Bible, bro. You keep that. You keep that, because the Jesus who died for me is not setting a trap to see if I'll take a vaccine. That's you. That's in your mind. That's not Jesus. It's not the Bible either. Because you can't show me vaccine in the Bible. You can't show me COVID-19 in the Bible. You can't even show me Bill Gates in the Bible. You can't. And all your lies about Bill Gates being the Antichrist, all that, when that brother gets to a certain age and he dies and you're still here, you'd have to revise your antichrist memo. You know that, right? You know that you have to revise your entire antichrist timeline. Everybody are calling antichrist when they die, and we're still here and Jesus hasn't come back yet, or the Lord is still working. You have to revise your timetable, because it was never God's timetable. It was never God's timetable. If you're here, drop me a line. If you're passing by, I'd like to get your comments. We're talking about a few things. Talking about vaccination. What's your vaccination story? Did you take your vaccine yet? How did it do you? How did it do you? I'm just talking about how, I felt a little something like, for the full day yesterday. I felt a little something from Moderna. Moderna showed me pepper for a day. But we're back here, and I understand that the vaccine is there to prepare my body for the attack in case the virus itself shows up. That's the job of the vaccinations. That's the job of the immunizations. And one of the things that was so interesting is that when I took the vaccine, the injection site, which still hurts a little bit, I got to be honest, the injection site was on top of my prior vaccination. It was just a reminder that we've done this before. We've done this vaccine thing before. So all y'all talking about it and pretending like this is the first time y'all heard about vaccines and tearing your hair out, you're dishonest. You're a liar. You guys are liars. You guys are liars. Especially those of you in my generation and thereabouts. If you lift up your shirt right now and you look at your arm right now, maybe your left arm or right arm, and you see that patch from the previous vaccination you've gotten, then you're a dishonest person when you're coming out talking about vaccinations as if it's the devil. You're just dishonest because you're carrying a vaccination mark right now. And I want to believe I'm still a child of God. And you want to believe you're a child of God still. So the vaccination you're carrying right now was not the mark of the beast back then, right? But it's just now. You're just dishonest. You're dishonest. And there's nothing godly about your position. And I move to those who just are skeptical about it. And I've said at the very beginning, to be skeptical about a vaccination, skeptical about medication, skeptical about treatment, or anything that the government gives you is a legitimate position to have. I believe it's legitimate. You have every right, especially African American community have a solid history to make them be a little, to be concerned about vaccinations. But I feel like that skepticism needs to give way to information. If you're seeing the groups of people getting vaccinated in your community and they're doing okay, if you're realizing that this particular vaccine has been developed with the help and the input of members of your community, African Americans. There was a Nigerian brother with the Pfizer one. Those are clues. I'm not saying that's the end of the conversation. I'm saying you put those together as clues to help you decide, right? And then you weigh it against the alternative, because the African American community in America, the minority community, we happen to be suffering the most with coronavirus. The coronavirus is having more of an effect on this community. So you have to carry that and weigh that against what you're seeing with the vaccinations, right? You're seeing so many people vaccinated in your community, and they're okay. They haven't grown this third leg in the head. They don't have horns. And I know people like to say, oh, it's not going to show up now. Well, bro, corona shows up now though. Corona can kill you now, like we've seen. So you gotta move. You gotta do something. You gotta do something. And I just feel like you're not being honest and real if you're sitting there and you've ever taken any medication, right? Even though all the medications we take, we have the list of side effects, possible side effects that they put on there. And warning: this if you take this, it may cause this, it may cause that, it may even lead to death. But we take them because when we take them, we understand that the probability of the side effect is very low compared to the reality of the disease, or the pain or the suffering that we're trying to avoid. And that's it. And that's how we're living. People are just not being honest. That's how we live our lives, right? We make calculations and we use the scales to determine which way is better, cost benefit analysis. But people want to pretend like, oh, in this particular case, they don't want to be able to, because of so much disinformation and misinformation is causing people to come out of reason, come out of common sense, stepping out of stuff they already know that they've been using all their lives, and they start pretending like for the first time, it's the first time they're hearing about a vaccination. This is the first time they're hearing about wearing a mask to protect yourself from what's an airborne disease. And it's just stupid. I mean, just submitting yourself to ignorance I don't understand it. Because this is not the first time you wear a mask. It's not the first time you'll be vaccinated. That's the truth. And now they're talking about vaccine passports, and that's causing people to lose their minds on Fox News. It's like you're just liars. You're such liars, and I just wish people would just call it what it is. It's a lie. Because in this same community, the same environment, those of us who have children, every school year, or if you go to a new location, you have to submit a document indicating that your children are up to date with their vaccinations. And we've been doing this. Those of us who emigrated from other countries into America, we went and we got all the documentation to show that we're up to date on our vaccinations before we were allowed to come into the country, before we got our visa. So this is just hypocrisy. This is stupid. You're just a liar. You just lie. I have no other way to describe it. You're lying because you want to prove a point. That's all it is. Because in reality, you know better. You know better. You know better. If your kid wants to do a sport, they ask you to go fill a form so they can be absolved of liability, telling them that your kid is fit to do the sport. So why are you acting right now like, oh, vaccine passport, they want to force us to have passport? You're a liar when you do that. Because it's so stupid. Your passport, the document you have, they force you to have that, right? But you don't protest that. You don't protest that. And your passport is an identification just to make sure that you are who you say you are. But you think they should allow you to get on a plane without verifying if you are vaccinated or if you've been tested or if you're negative from the virus? You want people to rush to be on your plane who have no indication, for whom you have no indication of whether or not they're carrying a disease that's airborne? Really? I don't think so. I think you're just a liar, and you want to make noise, and you want to be a contrarian. I think that's all that is. If you're here, drop me a line. Drop me a line. It's your boy JFK, man. We're talking about the vaccine. I've seen people online, following some of our quote unquote faith leaders who've made a name for themselves in just lying online. They've spent this entire coronavirus period lying. They spent this entire time just pretending they don't know what they know, you know. And unfortunately, many of your pastors and leaders that you're following, many of them will take the vaccine. They just don't have to tell you about it, right? You know, they don't have to tell you about it. They'll take the vaccine. They'll take the vaccine, and you're gonna be sitting there talking about, yeah, my pastor was right. This vaccine is evil. Your pastor is taking the vaccine, bro. Your pastor is taking the vaccine. I'll give you an example, right? Kogi State in Nigeria. The governor has spent this entire time saying there's no corona in Kogi State. He's not allowed any data to come out of Kogi State. And they're going to pretend like nobody in Kogi State has gotten COVID and nobody in Kogi State has died. That's what we're meant to believe, that somehow coronavirus went around, skipped Kogi State. Hey, that's fine. The people of Kogi are willing to go along with it, then that's fine. But well, guess who just received a shipment of the vaccine? Kogi State. And I mean, you're not giving the state is receiving it officially. That means the governor is aware that Kogi State is now receiving its own share of the coronavirus vaccine. Explain that to me. And they're going to give those vaccines to people. Explain that to me. They spent the whole time denying the existence of the disease. It's hypocrisy. It's unfair on the people that are being deceived. Although I admit it's on those people. If you're allowing yourself to be deceived right now, it's really on you. There's enough information for you to be free of deception. And if you're allowing yourself to be deceived right now, that's because you want to be deceived. Because it's like, it's too much of a lie. It's too much of a lie. People who have vaccination marks on their hands from all their other vaccinations, walking around talking about, I'm not going to take this vaccination, me, never. It's like, okay, congratulations. The unfortunate thing is that, you know, if one person still has coronavirus, you know, it's still a danger to the world. That's the thing that hurts. Otherwise, carry your lack of coronavirus, carry your lack of vaccine, and move away from the rest of us. And the people, I mean, there's so many dumb assertions, all in the name of trying to oppose the science, all in the name of trying to deny reality, right? I saw someone online saying, oh, how come after you get the vaccine, they still want you to wear a mask? Are you an idiot? Are you a moron? No, I take that back. You are a moron. You're an idiot. Because if you bother to understand how vaccines work, and if you really care to know the truth, the whole point is that these vaccines, and look at even the vaccines when they rolled out, they tell you 70% effective, 90% effective, 80% effective. What does that tell you? That there is still a chance that even after you take the vaccine, you may, or some people might, contract the disease or pass it on to other people. It's not foolproof. The issue I keep having with people is this: it is what we have right now. It has proven effective in many ways already, and you have no alternative solutions. Oh, well, a vaccine that you still have to wear a mask after you take it is not a real vaccine. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You're a moron. The fact that you take a vaccine, first of all, doesn't mean that you get immune that same day. Because if you understand how this works, right? Let's go back to what do you call that? Elementary science, right? Maybe biology, right? How do vaccinations work? They introduce a variant, a developed, what do they call that? An artificial variant of the disease we are trying to fight into your system. Yeah. That variant goes into your system and attacks your body with that controlled form of the virus. Yeah. And it allows your body's natural responses, natural defenders to work on this variant. It is in working on that variant that your body begins to realize how to fight the disease. That's how the vaccine works. It doesn't turn you to a superhero, you moron. So yes, of course you wear the mask after the vaccine because your body is still working on the information that the vaccine brought in. How dumb are we becoming? How ignorant have we become? I mean, watch a stupid horror movie and you'll get it. Watch a horror movie. Every horror movie you've watched that has had to do with a virus or a disease, go watch it. There's going to be a point where they're talking about antidotes. They're going to be talking about a vaccine, an antidote. That's what they're all rushing to develop in all the horror movies you've watched. Because I'm saying horror movie because real science doesn't seem to work on some of you. Some of you have given up on knowledge. So let's talk about movies then. In every movie you watch, there's a scene where they're working to develop it's antidote. Yeah, an antidote to a venom, an antidote to whatever. That's always where we're trying to get to, is like, how do we cure this? And the best we can do is if we can teach our body to fight. If we can teach our body to fight it, then our immune system develops the information to fight this particular virus. That's how we overcome it. So how stupid are you to be asking me why I still got to wear a mask after I get the vaccination? Because the vaccination is still working in you, bruh. How about you don't catch the disease while your body's trying to figure out how to beat it? This ignorance is it's palpable. This ignorance is a supervillain right now, fueled and fed with misinformation and disinformation. And shame on everybody out there who's perpetuating all these lies. If you're not going to take the vaccine, that's fine, okay? It's not fine, but what can we do? But don't complain when we ask you for a proof of vaccination when you're trying to come into a place where the rest of us are eating or flying. See, that's where there's a problem. You want to badmouth the vaccine. You have no solution. You have nothing else you're doing, right? You have nothing to keep this virus from destroying us, but you will not take the vaccine. But you still want to come into our schools. You want to come into school. You want to come to the movie theater. You want to go to the game. You want to do all that, and you don't want any consequences. Get out of here. So yeah, they're going to be asking people to show proof either of, testing that shows that they don't have the disease, or vaccination show they've been vaccinated. We got to find a way to keep it from spreading. And you're the same people that will be blaming China. So it came from China. Yeah, it came. That's the operative word. It came. It flew first class. Don't you wish there was a process in place that would have kept those infected with the coronavirus from making it across to America, across to your nation? Huh? You dumb. Don't you think it would have been helpful to have a system in place to identify people who had the disease when this all started? But now you're going to pretend you don't understand why we need to find out whether people have been vaccinated or tested before they board planes or before they come into the movie theater. Now you're outraged. You're just a liar. That's all you are, because the truth is in you, but you've suppressed it. You know the truth. You know that vaccinations have side effects. You know that people have been vaccinated for years. You have many of us, those of us from Nigeria, you have a mark on your arm somewhere showing the vaccinations you've already taken in your life. You don't have a solution for COVID outbreak, but you sit in your house and you disparage a vaccine that scientists have labored in the labs to come up with, that is having an impact. In nations like Israel right now, they've vaccinated so many people in their population, they're seeing a dramatic drop in COVID-19. But you're such a conspiracy theorist, you're gonna avert your eyes from that. You're looking at the story about AstraZeneca with 7 people having blood clots, and you're gonna take the blood clot situation, which is about 7 people out of 200 to 300 million people who've taken the vaccination, and you're gonna sit on the 7, as if you don't know how math works. You don't know how probability and statistics, you don't know how those things work anymore. I mean, you know how they work when it comes to your business and your money, right? But when it comes to this, that you want to perpetuate your conspiracy theory, so you're going to sit on the 7 people that died from AstraZeneca and miss all the 300 million people that are doing well with the vaccination. Even the AstraZeneca has a large rate of people who've taken it and they're doing well. And even though you know that every medication comes with a warning about possible side effects, every medication comes with a warning that says, if you're feeling this, if you're feeling that, see your doctor, because there's a possibility, but you still pop it in your mouth. But now you're going to pretend you don't understand how that works anymore, because you have stories of people having blood clots, and you're going to use that as your basis to say, didn't I tell you these vaccines are killers? A vaccine that 200 million people have taken. It's amazing to me. But again, to those who care to listen, don't listen to people like this. They have no solution for your life, and they want to destroy the solution you have. Like one pastor put it perfectly. When God sends you solutions in natural life, like medication, like medicine, like water, and you ignore that, and you want to pretend like you haven't seen any solutions, and you want to, when you just want to tell God, God help me, God help me, God help me, and God is saying, why didn't you use what I sent you? That's what's happening to most people. But I'm saying, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. This is what we have right now. There's every indication it's working. In many nations that have vaccinated a large portion of their people, the elderly population are doing better. This virus is having less of an impact. Even the strains, even the different variants, they're not catching up. The vaccination seems to be working against the variants. It's all a work in progress, but at least we're seeing some daylight. And these naysayers, these evildoers, you are evildoers. You are bent on darkness. That's it. You just love the darkness. So you want to come and just discourage everybody, and it's not bad enough for you that you're going to be out there leaving yourself open to carry this disease, but you want to make sure no one else gets the vaccine, and you want to fight and make sure nobody can ask you whether or not you're vaccinated, and you want to get on a plane with other people. Shame on you. Shame on you. And I believe, that there are enough reasonable people in this world to overcome the unreasonable ones, because it's the vaccine hesitation numbers here in America, for instance, they're coming down. They're coming down. People, areas where they've seen people saying, I'm not going to take it, I'm not going to take it, they're taking it because they've seen their neighbor take it, they've seen their doctor take it, they've seen their family members take it, and they're doing okay. And like I told you my story, I took it on Sunday, the first dose, and by Monday I felt chills. Yeah, it showed me Pepe. But like growing up, they told us that something I learned growing up. When you apply medicine to a wound, and that medicine pepper the wound, that's how you know it's working. No, am I wrong? That's how you know it's working. Growing up, when you if you have an injury or a sprain, when they put like Bengay, something spicy, something hot, when you feel the pain, the rubbing when they do that, that's how you know it's working. So the Moderna showed me Pepe on Monday, so I know it's working. So I'm going to encourage you, man. Don't let them talk you out of it. Especially if you're leaning towards getting it. They've opened it up to 16 and above all over. Please get the vaccination. It's what we have to fight this. It's our way out. It's our way back into society. It's our way back to go outside. We feel a little better, more comfortable with each other. And it's not a problem that after you take the vaccine, you still wear the mask, because we were wearing the mask for a year anyway. I mean, stop it. That's nonsense. That's just childish. That's stupid. That's silly. That's a silly premise. That's a silly premise to say because they told you you still have to wear the mask after you're vaccinated, then that means the vaccination isn't working. Come on, man. I'm hoping you're brighter than that. You're brighter than that. If you know how vaccination, how immunization works, then you understand the need to still have precautions right after you take it. Number one. Number two is, if the rest of your community is still yet to be vaccinated, you just put on the mask as a precaution, because giving it, getting it, all of that is out of the question. It's like double masking, isn't it? You've been vaccinated, so within your system there's a process to fight it and keep it out, and you were in the mask, so on your face is a process to fight it and keep it out. You're just safer. That's all that means. Until a certain point where there's enough of us who've taken it and we've had the vaccination long enough to test it out and to notice that we don't have tails, or we didn't grow a third eye, whatever it is you guys are telling yourselves. At that point, it'll be easy to do without the masks. And those of you going around talking about, oh, all these people in Florida went there with no mask and nothing's happened. It's like, I don't understand you. You did the same thing last year. All of you. You're the same people. The same people talking about it during Easter, during the summer. You're the same cats. Like your stupid president guy. You're the same ones. It's going to be gone by summer. Oh, let's open up by Easter. You're the same dudes. And you never learn the lesson. The spikes will come later. The spikes will come later. And unfortunately, some of your governors who are responsible for the spikes, they've gotten really good at hiding information, right? So that even when the spikes come, they begin to arrest people who are telling people that, oh, the spike is here. You're silly. You're just silly. And your silliness has cost lives. Your bad information has cost lives. You're responsible. If you're part of those people spreading all these unfounded rumors and making it more likely that people, don't wear their masks or don't social distance, you've been working against those of us who have been working against the virus. You've been working for Corona. You're a Corona employee. You're a COVID employee. You're a staff member of COVID. That's who you are. It's your boy JFK. Drop me a line. Now, I spent a lot of time on that because I just think it's very important. That's where we are right now. It's very important. But so I want to move on to some of the things we're working around. The Chauvin case, Derek Chauvin. Everybody, if you've been following this is the case about George Floyd. Now you know that Derek Chauvin, the officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck, has been charged. And I want to pull up some of the information about his charges and about the case. Now, one of the things I've been encouraging people to do is that, you may not be able to watch the whole thing, but if you get time, just take a look at moments of the trial, because there are a lot of things that you would not know prior to this trial. There's a lot of things that you would not know prior to this trial, that when you get into this trial and you're watching the witnesses, I've not been watching them, but there's been discussions about a lot of the videos that are being shown at the trial that are not even that we haven't seen before. Everybody knows about the videos showing George Floyd on the floor and all that, but there's a lot that we haven't seen before that's coming out in the trial, and the prosecution is hoping that will help the jury to come to a decision that will convict Mr. Chauvin. So one of the things that's been so interesting to listen to is experts that have come up. So there have been about 7-8 days of the trial right now with witnesses going back and forth. Some serious highlights in terms of some of the really serious ones. There's an LAPD sergeant who's testifying, and they're talking about how procedurally that Officer Chauvin did not follow procedure. It's a very critical point, because one of the things that the defense is trying to portray is that Chauvin was just doing his job, right? That's what they're trying to portray. They're trying to portray Chauvin as an officer that was just doing his job, and they're also trying to suggest that the crowds that were gathering made it difficult for Officer Chauvin to know to pay attention to George Floyd. So that's what they're doing. That's what Derek Chauvin's defense team is trying to do. So the witnesses have been coming up. Last week they had a lot of witnesses, eyewitnesses, who really talked about what they saw coming up to the scene. It was a very strong week for the prosecution, very strong one, because witness after witness talked about how they were all focused on one thing, and that was the fact that Officer Chauvin literally ignored everyone who's telling him to pay attention to George Floyd. And I think one of the more powerful testimonies was from the young man, the store clerk, who actually started the chain of events, quote unquote, because the story was that George Floyd had passed a $20 bill to pay for something he bought in that store, but the $20 bill was that the young man who was in the clerk, he took the bill, and to him it was a counterfeit bill. Now I don't know if that was ever even confirmed, but at this point we're way beyond that. So he said he took the bill, and that he said normally he wouldn't have said anything, but in that store, the policy is any store clerk that takes in a counterfeit bill will lose that amount of money from their paychecks. So in other words, if you take a $20 bill that's counterfeit, when they're doing the reconciliation, if it turns out the $20 bill is fake, you lose $20 from your paycheck. That was the reason he reported to his manager that he thinks that this man just gave him a fake bill, right? Which led to the call to the police officers. And I said it at the beginning, even at the time, like, even with those circumstances, even if all that is true, if George Floyd had passed a fake $20 bill, are you following me? In no world is that a reason to treat him the way he was treated, even before he was killed, right? Because what you're talking about is, if someone passes a $20 bill, a counterfeit bill, you always have to keep in mind, listen to this, and that's why when we talk about the disparate treatment in the system and systemic racism, people want to say, oh, there's no, but this is where you know it. You don't presume, you don't normally presume that this person passing you a fake bill is the purveyor of the fake bill. He also may be a victim of someone else who passed him the fake bill, right? That's always that possibility. So that's why you don't immediately treat him like is the guy making counterfeit money. But this whole story devolves as though upon arriving on the scene, the officers had made up their mind that they were going to arrest him, for having passed the counterfeit bill. So situation whereby there was a preemptive, approach to just, this guy is going to be arrested. And Officer Chauvin is caught on tape trying to defend himself while he was killing, while at the time when they were putting George Floyd's body into the ambulance, when someone else was asking him, why do you have to do that? And he's on tape saying, well, he's a big guy, we have to bring him down. So you see the mentality here. It's a mentality that's coming at George Floyd, like, he's a big guy, I have to subdue him. Don't get me wrong, that's not necessarily off base. If you're a police officer and you're responding to a scene and the potential perpetrator is, of a certain build and size, and you feel that, restraining him is going to be an issue, you use the techniques you've been taught to restrain. This is where Chauvin goes off the reservation. We're talking about after George Floyd has been put to the ground, face down, handcuffed, hands behind his back, 3 to 4 officers keeping him, pinning him to the ground. This particular officer Chauvin, with his knee to the neck. You see, that's why I said you should listen to this, to the trial. Just catch up with the highlights, because Chauvin's boss, the officer's boss, has testified. His sergeant has testified that he did not follow protocol. So Officer Chauvin's boss is telling you in the trial that he should not have been kneeling on the man's neck for that. And everyone says, even if you start out kneeling on his neck to subdue him, he was already compliant. Minutes into the assault, minutes into the takedown, George Floyd was no longer a threat, visibly. So the continued knee to the neck morphed into something else. It was a show of force. It was a show of dominance. And that's what all these witnesses are testifying to. That's what is becoming clearer to the jury, that Officer Chauvin was kneeling on George Floyd's neck as a show of force. There was hubris. There was this sense of, I'm in charge. And furthermore, the more the people around kept telling him, get your knee off his neck, don't do that, the more emboldened he felt to show them who's boss. That you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me to get my knee off his neck. That's what Chauvin was doing. And that's what's coming through in all these reports with all these witnesses. And that's why I say it's not a bad idea. It's a hard trial to follow because it's very emotional. But if you really want to get some details about what happened and to really follow this case, because like I was telling a brother of mine, it's better to have information when you're thinking about a situation, when you're discussing solutions, when we're trying to move forward. It's better to have information. So, for instance, knowing what the defense is trying to do in Chauvin's case gives us a sense of how they try to escape, liability and responsibility on this matter. But we've had these witnesses come forth. We've had an off-duty firefighter. She was very strong. She was a very strong witness. Although she got a little combative with the defense attorney for Chauvin, and I felt like that was gonna count against her a little bit, but maybe not, because her testimony was strong, and her being combative was just a reaction to the defense lawyer trying to, shred her case. So I can understand why she felt like, you know what, I got to fight for myself. This guy's trying to twist my words. But in a court of law, you come off looking like, oh, why are you so defensive? He's just asking you questions. So and she actually got a warning from the judge. She got a warning from the judge asking her to just answer the questions and not be so combative. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're here, drop me a comment. I don't have any comments today, man. That's funny. I see people dropping in, but no comments. Maybe the vaccine topic is too hot. Y'all don't want to get involved. I don't know. That's fine. That's fine. But I moved on from that. We're talking about Chauvin, the trial. And in terms of just analyzing the case and prospects, I would say right now the prosecution has done a good job of really raising the jury's awareness to the inhumanity of what Chauvin did to George Floyd. As if if you didn't know before, this trial is really with the witnesses. You had witnesses crying, and there's a very unique thing I want you to think about. Some of the witnesses were crying because they felt guilty and powerless. They felt like they could have done more. They wish they could have done more to keep George Floyd from dying, right? So if you're a bystander, quote unquote, and you're feeling like that, and you're crying in court because you couldn't save George Floyd, I believe that should have an impact on the jury to look at the person who killed him and kind of feel like, if these many people have this feeling of remorse, like they wish they could do something, and they're not even the ones kneeling on his neck, then how horrible are you and what you did? So I think the prosecution has done a really good job of letting the jury, really feel the pain of everyone who saw him die, right? And I think right now they've done a really good job of separating Chauvin from your average police officer, right? So that's one of the other jobs the prosecution has to do. They have to make it so that when you look at Derek Chauvin, you don't think to yourself as a juror, well, maybe he was just doing his job, it got out of hand. No, they've brought in all the experts, they brought in the trainers, the law officers, the Minneapolis Police Department. They brought in everyone, including his bosses. They brought in the people that train him, his supervisors. They've all come to testify to the same thing, that at a certain point, Chauvin was no longer following any protocol that they're aware of, that he was no longer within the reservation of police training. So I think that's a very effective strategy, because what it means is that Chauvin's defense attorney is going to have a hard time trying to convince the jury that, he was just doing his job. That's out of the window. There's something beyond doing your job here. He had a malicious approach to this matter. Now, this is where the challenge is. The challenge is for the prosecution to completely, because don't forget, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor, and it must be beyond a reasonable doubt. What does that mean? That they have to get to a point where they convince this entire jury that Chauvin killed George Floyd, and in so doing, he did it with a depraved heart. He did it with just enough negligence as to make it so that it's a homicide. Now, there's a distinction. The kind of murder that requires the intent to murder is a little iffy. I mean, proving someone's intent to murder someone is always difficult, because you'd have to prove a state of mind. But if you're going towards, depraved indifference, criminal negligence as, the background, then what you all you're trying to show to the jury is that a reasonable person watching that situation can infer that at the very least, or the very most, I'm not sure which applies, the officer did not care if the person he was dealing with dies, right? And I think there's a lot of that has gone into the first part of this testimony, where a lot of people came up and really described Chauvin's demeanor to make it look like it didn't seem like he cared if Floyd was dying. The firefighter came in and she said that she was literally yelling at them that, look at him, check for his pulse, check for his pulse, while they were telling her to leave, while they were telling her to move back. So all of that combines, I think, in the mind of what I believe is a reasonable juror to say, if everyone else could see that this man was dying, how is it that you, kneeling on top of his neck, did not know that or see that? And even if you didn't see that, shouldn't that have given you enough pause to lift your knee from his neck? So I really believe that this was a strong session for the prosecution, but the problem will be to make sure that each member of the jury grabs that. Now, the defense is building its case very strongly on disputing the cause of death, right? So they have the medical examiner who came out and said that there are other circumstances that led to George Floyd's death. That, it's more about what, he took a combination of drugs, and that's what he reacted to that caused him to have a heart attack, right? So that's his position. But the prosecution has at least one other medical examiner who's already testified that indeed, as far as he was concerned, George Floyd died of asphyxia by being deprived of oxygen, right? So that falls more into what the rest of us saw and what we believe, that, the knee on the neck, keeping him from being able to breathe. I mean, we just looking at that, and that's why I feel like the defense is really they're trying to climb up. They're climbing up a hill, because for anyone who's seen any of the videos and the reactions of the other police officers who saw this, the reactions of the first responders, the reaction of the dispatcher who sent them there, who was watching on video as the knee was on the neck, and who at some point started wondering if her screen was frozen, because she could not believe that the officer would have his knee on this guy's neck for that many minutes, right? So she assumed that there must be a glitch on her computer, until she realized, no, this guy's knee is actually on this guy's neck for this long. And she told her boss, this is the dispatcher, the police officer. She told a civilian dispatcher. She told her boss, "You can call me." This is very telling. She said, "You can call me a snitch. You can call me a snitch," because she knew what she was about to say will be something that would turn out bad for the officer if it becomes an investigation. She said, "You could call me a snitch, but I think that this officer is using excessive force. He's got his knee on that man's neck for about at that point, I think about 8 minutes." So she told her boss that something isn't right with the way they're dealing with this guy. So you have that dispatcher telling her boss in real time, not later, not after everybody got upset, during the knee on the neck, she was telling her boss, this guy is killing this. She's like, something's wrong. This doesn't look right. So you have all those stories come together in the Chauvin case right now. And the hope is that it will lead the jury to conclude, at the very least, that Chauvin did not care. He did not care that he was killing George Floyd, and lead him to a conviction. Don't forget, all the defense needs is to convince one juror. I mean, if they can convince one juror that maybe he didn't really kill him, you can have a mistrial. Now, with the mistrial, the DA has the opportunity to retry the case. And in this case, I know the DA is likely to do that. They're not going to walk away. But it's harder. It gets harder to try it a second time. because you got all these witnesses who many of them are so brave coming out, because many of them are going to be targets. Unfortunately, they're coming out and they're putting their information out there, and they're being witnesses to this very, very horrible case. So, I mean, trust me, as a prosecutor, one of the toughest parts of the job was convincing a witness to come forward, convincing a victim to speak, because they all ask the same question: if I do this, if I testify, am I going to be safe? What's going on? If you're in the building, drop me a line, drop me a comment. I'm not getting too many comments tonight. I'm thinking that maybe I started up with the vaccine and it's too controversial. Some people are not feeling me on the vaccine, but I'm talking about the Chauvin case right now, the trial. And so we're just talking about how people need to watch it. Not the whole thing. It's too hard to watch, but pay attention to the case so we can really follow and see what happens at the end. Right now, it's looking like the prosecution has done a good job of really getting the information to the jury about how horrible Chauvin treated George Floyd. I think the jury gets it. I think the jury gets it. They've been watching videos that the rest of us have not even seen, and they've been hearing testimony from people who know better about what it should be and what it should be like. So, but the challenge is going to be whether or not the defense team is able to convince at least one juror or two jurors about the cause of death. So, I mean, as improbable as it might seem to you and me watching the video, for someone to suggest that George Floyd died of some kind of overdose or some kind of reaction to amphetamines, or because he had a pre-existing condition, and you and I are gonna sit there and look at it and say his pre-existing condition was not an issue of death for him until somebody put a knee on his neck for 9 minutes. So even if your pre-existing condition makes you more susceptible to dying, how about we don't put a knee on your neck to find out, right? Because if you're trying to prove that he died from something else, then you have to explain to us how that something else that killed him just happened to kill him while someone was kneeling down on his neck. That's the tough job the defense has. But don't get me wrong, all you need is one juror to really, like, they found out yesterday, I think it was yesterday, one of the jurors was they caught him sleeping, right? So he was fast asleep. They're all looking up at a projector, and his head was still down. So a juror like that might miss something important, and then when it's time to deliberate, he might be the one to say, "Well, I don't see how this is relevant," when he missed an entire set of testimonials. So that's the risk that's always there. So I get those who say, "What's the point in watching this? They're gonna acquit him anyway." This might not go that way. This might not go that way just because I think the prosecution just has a strong case. It's just a really strong case for the prosecution. And I mean, video evidence, expert evidence, testimonies from a lot of people who were witnesses. In many of these police officer cases, you sometimes find that their bosses, supervisors, they would come up and they would give testimony that would help the officer because they don't believe he should go to jail. That's not what we have here. In this case, a lot of testimony, even from the police officers that have been called up and experts, have been more towards saying that Chauvin did not follow protocol and he used excessive force. So that might be something that weighs really strongly against Chauvin in the question of whether or not he's going to be convicted or acquitted. So I say, let's keep watching. This is a very strong case. The witnesses are brave and they've been strong. I only listened to some of the testimony. I didn't even watch it, and I had to turn it off at some point because you start crying with the witness on the stand. A lot of the witnesses were crying. They broke down, and you could tell, they were really touched the more they relived it, because they felt like, I can't believe I watched that happen, So we have that going on that case. I was going to talk a bit about the Georgia law. I'm going to touch on that a little bit because I know there's a lot of people who have been having that conversation about whether or not it's fair for Georgia to be experiencing all the backlash and the governor came out, tried to defend his own plan, and how the Georgia laws are stronger than New York, than New York's election laws. And you know what? Let me shock you and say he has a point. He has a point to the extent that New York's election laws, you know, have been in need of revamping for a long time. But here's the point. Here's the point. New York's election laws and the issues that can be pointed out from it have not had that kind of impact in the city, of discouraging voting. That's number one. Number two, and let me take that back. It might have discouraged some voting, but it's not overwhelming. It's not strong enough, because trust me, as New Yorkers, if we find out that we're not happy with the way the voting system is, and even some of us who had to wait in long lines last year, it was almost as though we all understood why, with Corona and everything. So it's like something that we are all part of that system. And don't get me wrong, local officials are aware of when people are unhappy with the voting apparatus in their area. The difference, I think, is first of all, is in the motivation behind the law. That's the part that the Georgia's governor and all these people defending the law and all these people fighting Coca-Cola and trying to do this. This is the part they always skip. They're skipping over this part because it's not a convenient conversation for them, right? It's not convenient. And what are they skipping over? Is the fact that this change in the voting law is motivated by the big lie, right? The underlying reason why this. Think about the way they rushed this. Think about how quickly they put this together. We just had the election, right? Certification. Biden took office in January. Between January 20th and let's say last week, these guys put together these new voting requirements. They put it together in a bill. They passed it, sent it to the governor. He signed it. Now, anybody who knows anything about bills knows that it takes much longer. And usually what happens is that, people have been working on it for a while before it even gets to the front, right? So you have a system here that's clearly designed, right, to react to a situation. So the loss, especially when we talk about Georgia, everybody knows that Trump losing Georgia and Warnock and Ossoff winning their seats in Georgia, everybody knows that was a big blow to the Georgia GOP. Everybody and their mama knows it. So that's why it's so funny to me that anyone wants to trying to pretend to us that there's any other motive behind this law than to see whether or not they could avoid or prevent another loss in Georgia. This is a reaction. This is a political reaction to an electoral loss. And that's why when you look at this, now before we get to the after provisions of the law, the whole law is designed for one thing, is to never again allow what happened in 2020 to happen again, right? They never want it to happen again. What happened that they didn't like? They lost Georgia to a Democrat. And they lost the Senate seats to 2 Democrats. That's all this is about. Forget the noise. Forget the noise, right? Brian Kemp and them, they have only one agenda on this thing. They figured out what can we do to make sure that because the turnout was great in Georgia, right? They had incredible turnout. And their own election officials, including the governor and the Secretary of State, came out to say that Georgia's elections ran smoothly. They had the greatest turnout. It was good, and there were no issues. So how is it that it is in the same election where your own officials come out and say this is the best election we've had, in the same election where you recounted the results of the presidential election twice, hand counted, and found no discrepancy. How come it is that election that has now motivated you to change your entire election law? There's only one issue here. The Georgia Republicans changed the law to favor Georgia Republicans in the next election. Now, that in itself, maybe that you can say that's just politics. I will give you that. But in doing that, they have put in some specific things to make it difficult for certain people to vote. That's the thing that pops out. Now, I'll give them this. They were wise enough not to make it open, right? It's like, it's like a KKK member, not wearing his hood or wearing a shirt and tie. So you don't really know until he speaks or he says something. That's what they did with this law. What do I mean? They made some changes that are benign. They made some changes that could even be counted or qualified as good. Early voting. So let's look at through it. Because people talk about stuff and many of them have not even gone to really read any summaries of the law or anything. So I don't want to be in that category. So here we go. So in 2020, this reads nearly 2.7 million Georgians voted during the election, right? And the new law will offer more opportunities for early voting in most of Georgia's counties. Mark that point one. In most of Georgia's counties, you got to figure out they were trying to increase early voting in most of the counties because they found that early voting favored the Democrats. So there were some red counties that did not take advantage of early voting. Now they want to make sure that early voting is a thing for those guys too, because they were beaten by early voting in some of the more populated counties. Note that. That's my editorial on it. And, you could agree or disagree. But the point is that they did increase opportunities in some counties for early voting. There will be at least 17 days of early voting starting on the Monday, that is 22 days before the election, until the Friday before an election. So they've increased that. So on paper, that's good, as long as that's applicable to all counties. You see what I'm saying? All the counties should be embracing that. If every county had early voting extended, then you'd be able to put a check mark next to that. But not every county has that. And then you go deeper and you find out that they've left part of this law up to some of the counties to determine if they're going to apply these provisions in their own counties. What do you think is going to happen in many of those counties that are run by GOP representatives, but the voting public is made up of minority voters who are likely to lean Democrat? What do you think is going to happen? Just logically. So that's what I'm saying. It's a poison pill inside this bucket. So I've talked about the motive behind this bill. We all know what it is. Please do not insult us by suggesting that this law was motivated by anything other than the fact that Georgia lost the Senate and the presidency to a Democrat in 2020. We're done with that. They had a fair election. They had a good count, and they know it, but they don't like the outcome. So please don't bring that up to me. That's just disgusting that you think you could get away with such a stupid argument, that there was any other motivation for this law apart from the fact that Donald Trump lost and he's bitter, and they wanted to please him and his people for the next time. We all know. It's so clear. Good. Now, the bill requires counties to have at least 2 Saturdays of early voting with the option of offering voting on Sundays as well. Boom. Listen to this. It requires them to have at least 2 Saturdays of early voting. Great. Look at this line. With the option of offering voting on Sundays as well. Now, listen to this. Georgia required only 1 Saturday of early voting previously. Many of the larger counties where most Georgia voters live already offered early voting on 2 Saturdays. But the new law will expand access to early voting in many of the smaller. I need to drink water. If you're here, drop me a line, drop me a line. You see what I'm talking about? This expansion is really focused on smaller counties. They want to expand the option to allow those counties to compete with the largest cities who had those options before. That's what, so whenever you see an expansion or something that's positive here, it's still towards the same purpose. They want their red counties to have more opportunities to counter the votes of the blue counties. That's what's going on. And I'm reading to you provisions, and I'm explaining to you the parts that could look like good things and explaining to you the underlying parts that counter that. I'm not going to be able to go through all of it, but I'm sure you get the picture. Now, ID is now required not just for in-person voting, but also for mailing voting. You get this? So based on they're not even, I don't even think, people say they're doing it based on the big lie. They're using the lie as a cover, right? The lie that it was voter fraud in the mailing vote. They have no evidence of it, and their own officials have said that didn't happen. But nevertheless, they're going to use that as a reason to bring up these laws that are not only unnecessary because there was no fraud, but they have the impact of discouraging people from voting by mail, right? So now, so it says this. It said previously Georgia. Let me just read that to you. So previously, in Georgia, a form of identification was required for voting in person, but not for voting absentee by mail. Now it says the new law requires those requesting and returning ballots by mail to also submit a driver's license number or state ID number. If the voter does not have one, he or she can submit a photocopy of a different form of identification. Now listen to this. The county registrar's office or the Georgia Department of Driver Services can issue free state IDs when a voter returns an absentee ballot. He or she can also provide the last 4 digits of a social security number in the place of an ID number. So now you have voter ID inserted into mail-in ballots, which is going to again, it's going out there and trying to find people. Not everybody has a driver's license. That's the whole point. That's why when they talk about voter ID, they know what they're talking about. They're trying to look at a community that of people who depend on, or they ride the bus, who are not even driving, and they're trying to look for ways that to make it difficult for you. That's all this is. Otherwise, it's because, listen to what I'm saying. It was never necessary. Mail-in ballot went off without a hitch in Georgia. It worked the way it was supposed to. They've done all their investigations. They cannot find any fraudulent mail-in votes. They can't find any. But nevertheless, they're going to introduce this law as if they're trying to secure the mail-in vote, as if something bad happened with the mail-in vote. Again, remember their motive for this. This is just them. They're grasping at straws, looking for any way in which they can just stem the tide of this minority population voting in their numbers. This is what's terrifying them. How are these guys voting this much? Why did these guys come out this much? How can we stop Black people, Latinos, Latinas? How do we stop them from voting this much? So we're going to come for so many of the things that helped them the last time. And the alternative, we're going to go to our red counties and make sure that we open up more access to the red counties, so we can make sure we get all the votes in our red counties, so we can fight the blue monster in the cities. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. And I've told you what would be considered the positives of some of the things I've read to you, right? They regulate the drop boxes, the new regulations, they shorten the time frame for requesting and returning mail-in ballots. I mean, just if you watch this show, you see my link. If you're here, drop me a line. We're talking about the Georgia vote, the Georgia election law, and why the backlash and what to make of the defenses, because the governor's trying to defend it. Drop me a line what you feel about that if you're here. I'm hoping there's no glitch with my system right now today. I'm not getting any of my comments, and that's a problem. That's the problem. I'm hoping that somewhere out there people are seeing this. I hope people are seeing this if you're out there. But if you're in here, please drop me a comment. Let me know that my comment section is working. Because I've not gotten a comment. Oh man, yeah. If you're here, drop me a line. Drop me a line. So we're talking about the Georgia voting law, and one of my brothers was my brother TJ was asking me a question about it. I said I was going to do a show about it. I'm gonna tag him on the show after. But did we all know the motivation for this law? So let's not play that game where someone tries to deceive us and tell us, oh, it's just an innocent way of improving the voting system. No, no, please. Let's fine. You want to do this as a reaction to losing the presidency and losing the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. We get it. That's politics, right? You got to do something, but don't pretend like that's not what you're doing. That's an insult to our intelligence at this point. We know why you're doing this. It's cool that we know why you're doing this. You're doing it, and you're using the blanket of a lie, right? You're pretending that the last election was so problematic, that there was so much widespread fraud, that it needs an emergency session to fix it. That's why you did this. And the expansions you give in this thing, and Kemp was bragging about how we have more early voting days than New York. We have more. What you did was give more options to red counties. Anyone who reads it closely will notice that. You're a liar, Governor Kemp. You're a liar because you know why you did this. Everybody knows why you did this. And all the Coca-Colas that you're fighting and MLB, they all know why you did this. That's what's going on. That's why you're getting the backlash. We know why. Stop hiding behind fake stats and lies about election fraud. Your own Secretary of State said that there was no election fraud. You lied, man. You lied when you said you were doing this to make the elections better. No, you were doing this to make the elections redder. This Georgia law is not to make Georgia elections better. It's to make Georgia elections redder. That's all you're doing. And I get it, that's politics. But don't lie to me. Just own it. Be proud of what you're doing. It's horrible and disgusting, but it's politics. Be proud of it. It's the lying that gets me. The pretending. You clutching your pearls, behaving like you're offended that people are upset with your fake attempt. Get out of here, man. Get out of here with that. You do you, man. Yeah, you're doing your thing. You're trying to prevent Democrats from ever winning again in Georgia because you're afraid, because the people seem to be coming. I get it. I feel your panic. Governor Kemp, Georgia GOP, Texas GOP, I feel your panic. And you're right to panic. You are so right to panic. I get it. All I'm asking is that in your panic and the things you do in your panic, don't lie about them. Don't lie about them, y'all. Don't lie about it. Just own it. You're doing your thing, but own it. Own it. So one more word on this before I leave it. So we have the different provisions, and of course the one that everyone's heard about, the one that's like a symbol, is the food and drink distribution to voters in line by non-poll workers being banned, but self-service water stands are allowed. So this is what they're saying. Like in the last elections, they know that people waited in line for so long, sometimes 8 hours, 9 hours. So there were groups of people that went around and just gave people water, gave them food, and there was no problem. You see, that's my thing. They're fixing a problem that doesn't exist. That's how you know that they're not fixing a problem. They're doing something else. So they went around and they started sending. So now they have the new law saying no one can go around giving people food and drinks while they're standing in line for hours. Now they temper that by saying, oh, you can have a self-service water stand, and poll workers could put water in a particular location. Everybody who went to vote knows that the whole point, the whole benefit of someone bringing you water is that they can meet you at any point on the line to give you water, because you're not going to leave your place in line to go get water from the self-service station. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's so disingenuous. It's so dishonest. It's so dishonest. I mean, it's all to discourage voting in particular areas. Because think about everything I've told you. Think about everything I've told you. The effect will always be to either increase opportunities in the red counties or discourage opportunities in the blue counties. That's all. That's the chess game they're playing here. That's the chess game they're playing here. It's sad and disingenuous, and it's dishonest. And I mean, they deserve. I mean, the thing about boycotts and things like that, the thing about actions by corporations is the effect. Like it affects the people. It affects the residents of that state, of that county, wherever it's put in place. So I don't root for that. I really don't root for that because of the effect, right? I would rather those corporations, if those corporations are serious, right? If those corporations are serious, I would rather them pledge financial support to opponents of these politicians in the next election cycle. I think that's a more, I mean, they can speak out with their statements and let the people know where they stand. But I mean, their money still talks. Their money talks. If they believe that Georgia GOP has gone off the rails, you know where to catch them. You know where to punish them. It's when it comes election time, when it comes donation time. You take your wallets and you move to the other side, or you don't help them. I think that's a more effective way to do it. So I don't like the whole MLB pulling out. MLB is in a tough spot because a lot of their players already were talking about how if they don't pull out of Georgia, some of their top players are saying they're not gonna go to Georgia to play. So they were in a tough spot. So MLB more or less had no choice. But for other corporations, I mean, I wouldn't move your headquarters out of there. People work there, but make your statements and let people know where you stand. But let nobody be deceived about what Georgia's doing. The last point on Georgia, is what they're doing with who gets to decide finally whether or not an election result should be notified. Now, to my brilliant audience, please tell me, where have you heard somebody complaining about certification in the last election? Let me see. Could it be the guy that was in the White House? Do you remember this? This was the whole game. The entire election last year and the survival of this democracy, in my opinion, came down to a simple question last year. In states like Georgia, right? It came down to whether or not election officials and the Secretary of State would do their jobs and certify the results of a fair election in Georgia. That's the whole Joe Biden's presidency and taking office rested on that premise last year. Would the Secretary of State in Georgia and hopefully in Pennsylvania and Michigan and all the other swing states, would they do the right thing and not cave to partisan political pressure? Would they react, correctly to Donald Trump's bullying? The answer was they reacted correctly. Raffensperger, like I said, he's no hero outside of that moment, but he did his job, right? They certified the elections, and that decision and the board that certified elections were all codified, so the GOP legislature couldn't do anything about it. That's why elections were certified last year in January. So forget about everything else we've talked about for a minute, right? Early voting, water when you vote, all that stuff. It wouldn't matter. None of that will matter if at the end of the day, this provision is in place. Let me read this to you. So this is the one change that I find the most disturbing. The 5-person state, now listen to this. I mean, keep in mind what happened last year and how we fought about certification. The 5-person state election board will no longer be chaired by the Secretary of State, who now becomes, listen to this, a non-voting ex officio member. That means the part that Raffensperger played in Georgia, where he went ahead and pushed forward the certification and made sure that the board certified the results, because he was chairman of the board, and which he was telling the president and telling everyone else, it's my job. I have no other choice. I have to certify this election. We've counted, the machinists have counted, we've hand counted, we've recounted, and the results are the same. Joe Biden is the winner. I have no choice. My hands are tied. I'm a Republican. I voted for Trump, but according to the law, I have no choice. I have to certify this election in Georgia for Joe Biden. Raffensperger did that as chairman of the electoral board. Look at what they do in the new law. Again, the 5-person state election board will no longer be chaired by a Secretary of State, who now becomes a non-voting ex officio member. Now, I want to address this because it's one of my boy TJ brought up. Now, the issue was when Brian Kemp became governor, when Stacey Abrams lost in 2018. One of the complaints was that Brian Kemp was he was the Secretary of State of Georgia, and he was chair of the electoral board. So there was complaints that how can you be the chair of the board that certifies your own victory? The conflict of interest was so clear. But don't forget the discussions then. It was supposed to be a situation in which Raffensperger, when he declared himself a candidate, he should have stepped down from the Secretary of State position. That's what should have happened. He didn't do that. He went ahead and he continued as Secretary of State, and he remained chairman of the board to certify his own election victory. If there ever was a conflict of interest, that was it. Now, those who want to defend the Georgia law want us to think that, oh, aren't they just doing what Stacey Abrams asked them to do in 2018? Oh my goodness. We would have to have lost our entire minds to believe such a silly lie, right? Because if you were trying to, the idea that the Georgia GOP is doing anything to please Stacey Abrams out of their own heart is worthy of several sub jokes. That's how much of a joke it is. It has baby jokes in it. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. The posture of the GOP in Georgia to Stacey Abrams, they're mortal enemies. And in any case, if they wanted to do anything to appease Stacey Abrams after her loss, they would have changed the laws after Brian Kemp's victory. They didn't do that. What they did was change the laws after their Secretary of State correctly certified the election for Joe Biden. That's when the trigger went off. That's when they couldn't handle it. That's when they made a law. So please, again, do not bring this silliness about them trying to do the right thing. We know why they're doing this. We were there when Donald Trump tried to pressure Raffensperger. He was trying to pressure him to do something about it because he was chairman of the board. But Raffensperger did the right thing in that one moment. So this is the biggest one in that Georgia law. Everything else, for me, I mean, they have their impact, but compared to this, those are smoke screens. This is the one. So what they're saying is, now listen to this. GOP Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has been at the center of the attacks by Republicans for pushing back against attacks from former President Trump. Now, the chair and the board members will be elected by the General Assembly, giving more power to the Republican-controlled legislature. So now they get to choose the members of the board, and they get to choose who's going to be the chair. No longer is it automatically the Secretary of State. So no more Raffensperger. He's actually removed from the board. He's an ex officio member. He can't even vote. Tell me that doesn't sound like punishment for Raffensperger. No, try. No, come on, try. Come on, man. This is too blatant. It's too clear. It's too clear. So now we have this. Now, and why elected by the legislature, the chair is supposed to be nonpartisan. Listen to this. The new law prohibits the chair from actively participating in a political party organization, donating to a political campaign, or running for public office during his or her service and in 2 years preceding the term as chair. Now they get to choose the chair. Now they want to cloak the chair in nonpartisanship, but they're choosing him. They're the ones who are going to choose him. But that's not all. That's not all. Because if that was the end of it, then it could go either way. Listen to this. Now, the state election board has new powers over local election officials. Listen to this. It can suspend a county or municipal superintendents based on performance or violation of election board rules after first conducting a preliminary investigation or hearing. It may then appoint temporary replacements, but it can suspend more than 4 officials. They can suspend the entire board. So what they're doing, they're changing the board. The board is now under the legislature in a bigger way, not standing on its own 2 feet by law, but now the legislature has so much control over who's on the board. Now the board now is being strengthened over concerning their control over over the local superintendents and county municipal superintendents. Do you understand this? So Allegheny in a county, right? What's that? Was Fulton County? Let me bring it home. Fulton County, the county superintendent, right, is now under the direct supervision of the state election board, which is now under the direct and complete supervision of the state legislature in real time. Do you see this thread? So reverse it to the last election, right? The GOP, because right now Republicans they've been in charge of the Senate in Georgia for close to 20 years, so they know they're in there for a while. So this is for them. The GOP legislators choose the electoral board and they choose the chair. The electoral board can suspend the county superintendent of Fulton County. So if an election is happening and it looks like Biden is winning and it looks like the votes are coming in, mailing ballots and all that, the board can call the county superintendent and suspend him and accuse him of a violation of performance of based on this is good. So they can suspend him based on performance. Do you know what that means? Do you know what it means to be able to suspend somebody based on performance? I determine whether or not your performance is good. If your performance as Fulton County superintendent is causing Joe Biden to win, that's bad performance for me. I suspend you and I'm going to replace you with somebody who will perform in a way where Joe Biden is not winning. This is so blatant. This is the outrage. This is why this is so outrageous. I need to cut this segment and just post this segment alone, because this segment deserves it deserves to really be put out there. I think I'm going to do that. I'm not able to get to Matt Gaetz today, but I'm going to stop it here. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the outrage that we're dealing with, right? And that's why when you look at why there's so much noise and Coca-Cola and all these guys are reacting to that noise, is because there are other states that are right now pushing these kind of bills through their legislature. The only reason those other states will not go through it or may not go through with it is they see Georgia suffer. That's why it's important for Georgia to feel this pain. And I personally feel bad. I don't want it. I don't want Georgia to lose out because the people lose out. But at the same time, I don't want to sit here and allow them to get away with it, because Texas is passing it. Other states, they have it in their pipelines. We have to stop this. We have to stop it. They're literally designing a voting system where the GOP controlled state legislature can influence whether or not the Fulton County superintendent is able to certify an election or get results to the board. This last election would have been perfect for them to mess with. Because they would have lied about voter fraud. Based on that lie, they would have suspended the Fulton County superintendent. Based on that suspension, they would have brought in their guy, whoever it is, and he would have done a recount. And then Donald Trump would not have needed to call Raffensperger to say, all I need is 11,780 votes. It would have been done for him free of charge. That's where they're going with this new law. Forget about the smoke screens of the other provisions. This is where they're going. Who controls the count? Who controls certification? That's it. We're not done. That's why this must not stand. All right. So you know what? I'm gonna share this portion of the video, and I hope it helps somebody to explain this matter. But you know what? It's your boy JFK, man. It's been real. I don't know what's going on with my comments tonight. My comments is not working, bro. This is crazy. I've never had this before. But that's good. You know me, man. I'm my own party, man. I have fun all by myself, son. All by myself, son. All day, every day. As Kevin Hart would say. It's your boy JFK, man. So be easy, like I said. For those of you who want to take the vaccine, go ahead, just do it. Let's get the best we can out of this moment. We got to get out. We got to come out of this. Let's do it. Don't let nobody discourage you, especially people who have no solutions for you. They have no answers. They just like to deny things and spread conspiracy theories. It's time to leave those people behind. We're done with them. We should be done with them. You know, they've been exposed. Don't let them come back in with new lies. They're the same 5G people, right? They've been exposed. They're liars. And that's it. All right. It's your boy JFK. Next time I'll be talking about Matt Gaetz a little bit more and all the other developments, and we'll probably get into some of the politics with the infrastructure bill also. It's your boy JFK. It's been a pleasure, man. Share this video if you like it, and particularly for the information, because I think I was able to go through this Georgia law a little bit. It's a summary, but I wanted you to pick out some of the important parts of it. Share this with people who ask you about why people are boycotting and on all that. And we'll catch it up later. All right. And any questions, any comments, feel free to drop it in there. Appreciate you. It's your boy JFK. It's JFK Live, man. Be easy. Thank you so much. All right. One.